Alrighty, sir. So we are going to ask you, Mr. Jim Leighton, some questions. When and where were you born?
Caribou, Maine in 1944, December 14th.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
Well, they claim to be. I have one sister still living named Caroline Jane, and she is 62. And I have one sister that had passed away who was adopted. Her name was Sheila, and she died in 1979 in June in a car accident in Hereford, Arizona.
Mm. And what kind of games did you play growing up?
I didn't play games. I hunted and fished growing up and worked.
Okay. Did you have chores?
I milked cows. I picked potatoes. When I was 7 years old, I started driving tractor in the fields. And at 9 years old, I had my first car.
Wow. Okay.
Which was a 1946 Nash.
How'd you get that car?
Well, I was helping my father put a motor in his 49 Oldsmobile, and when he went to buy the motor, the fellow said, "You're going to need to be able to get that motor home. You better buy that pickup, that car to go with it, put it in the trunk of that car." So my father bought the car and put the motor in the trunk, and we drove it home. And when we finished putting the motor in the car, he gave me the car.
Nice.
Which he knew I wasn't going to go far because it took a pail of water to go 3 miles in the radiator. And that's just how far it was to my grandfather's farm where I worked milking cows.
Okay. So did you have electricity, TV, or phone growing up?
I did. We were the first family in the town of Limestone to have a television, and that was in 1949. We only had one station, and you could only get it in the wintertime, and that was Rimouski, Canada. And
so you watched Canadian TV?
We watched Canadian TV. Yep, and we listened to them sign off every night at midnight, and if we were on the weekends. And my father, finally in 1951, started the first television station in Aroostook County, and it was on Loring Air Force Base, WLAFB. And he was the first person ever seen on a TV in Limestone from that station. He built the station and ran it for the Air Force until they took it over. That's along with his regular job as a hospital engineer at Loring.
Wow.
And I used to play music on that TV station. I had a rock band in high school, and they used to invite us out there every Saturday morning, and we'd play music, country rock for an hour or rock and roll.
So you were a TV rock star.
I was, back then. I sure was.
That's awesome.
By then, TVs were starting to come in.
So did you have any pets, and what were their names?
Well, my first pet was a cat, and he was a yellow and white tiger, and his name was Bread.
Okay.
And my first dog was a miniature Doberman Pinscher, and he was about the size of a teacup poodle, and his name was Dickens.
Did you name him?
I named him.
You named him. Okay.
I didn't name Dickens. Dickens already had a name because he was a little Dickens when I got him.
Okay. So what did your house look like, and did you share a bedroom?
No, we had the largest house in Limestone. It belonged to my great-grandfather, who was a doctor and a veterinarian and an engineer. And his name was A.C. Leighton, and he was married to May Leighton. And the house had 13 rooms, and it was 2 stories. It had an L with an extra kitchen and a huge barn attached to it, right in the center of Limestone. The biggest and largest home there. So each of us kids had our own bedrooms. There was 5 bedrooms, a bath upstairs, a bath downstairs. But when I was a kid, we used to heat that house with wood. had a central furnace in the basement, and my job was to get up at 2 o'clock every morning and go put more wood in the furnace
Fire, yep.
for the central heating, and then we went to coal. And then finally, my father, who was always on the cutting edge of everything, went to Sears and Roebuck in Presque Isle and bought an oil furnace. We had the first oil-fired furnace in limestone, hot air furnace. There was only one problem. Nobody delivered oil back then. So I had to go to the gas station, which was a quarter-mile away, every day and carry 2 cans of kerosene, 2 5-gallon cans of kerosene, and dump it in the 55-gallon drum to heat the house. Back then, I could buy 2 5-gallon cans of kerosene for less than $1.
Wow. Is that house still standing?
Yes, the house is still there. The barn is not there, the L is not there, but the basic house is still there.
Do people live in it?
Yes. Had stained glass windows too. One of the only houses in town to have stained glass windows.
So were your parents strict, and what happened when you got in trouble?
Now, my parents were, they were strict. My father always said, I don't care where you go, I don't care what you do, but if you tell me you're going to be there, you better be there if I come looking for you. Or if I call, and if you're going to be late, and it's going to be later than you told me, then you better call me and tell me. And that's not quite the way he put it. He said, I don't care if you're going to Mabel's whorehouse. If I go there, you better be there. And I never let him down.
Nice.
They were very liberal. They were very easy. But I just knew not to get in trouble like all the other kids were doing.
So what was school like, and did you have a favorite subject?
Yes, I loved chemistry. And I loved physics. And the rest of it they could trash. But now the rest of it that I say they could trash back then, I love history, I love grammar, I love English, I love all the other subjects, including mathematics, that I wasn't so hot on back then.
Well.
But you have to remember, by the time I was in high school, I had my own television repair business and refrigeration repair.
You did?
Before I was in high school. I actually started in the 7th grade. Because I had my own car. I knew how to do it. I had all the tools.
Okay. So, did you play any sports?
No, I hunted and fished. Those are my sports.
And what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were younger?
An electronic engineer, which was somewhat kind of what I did.
For a while.
Well, when I graduated from high school, I knew more about electronics and electricity than the teacher that was teaching us at school. My father was an engineer, and from the time I was 5 years old, he would say, pay attention, boy, I'm only going to show you this once and tell you this once. And he was my teacher from the time I was 5 years old till I left home. And he was an excellent teacher.
So he taught you to learn
all
fast.
All about electronics, everything you could want to know. Mathematics, everything. And it helped me earn extra money to get through school. And during the tough times, it helped feed my family.
What was the favorite thing that your mother made for dinner?
My mother was not a very good cook. I can't remember anything favorite. When in the summertime, she used to make what we call Italian sandwiches today, with different kind of meats and peppers and whatnot. Those were one of my favorites. But my mother, you could eat what she cooked. But, and she made an oyster stew to kill for. That's probably my favorite. My mother knew how to make an oyster stew. And everybody in the town loved my mother's oyster stew to the point they had one day a year when my mother they would pay for it. They would buy all the ingredients. My mother would make 20 gallons of oyster stew, and the whole town would turn out at the fire station to try or eat her oyster stew.
Oyster stew day.
Yep.
Nice. Okay, so what was your favorite childhood memory? Do you have one?
just hunting and fishing is all by myself as a kid. 8 years old, I had my own .22 rifle, and I was hunting by myself.
Mm.
And you just couldn't keep me out of the woods from then on.
Did you live through any of the wars?
I was born during World War II. I can remember very vividly living through the Korean War and hearing all of the songs on the radio and listening to all the news reports from the radio as the progress of the Korean War. I was 7 years old, I believe, in 1951, and 52 and 53 is when the Korean War was taking place. So, yeah, I remember them very well. By the way, we lived in Camden, Maine during that time, Camden and Portsmouth, New Hampshire, just for 2 or 3 years. And then we came back to Limestone.
Okay. And this is kind of a loaded question, I think, for you. But what was your profession and how did that come about? Should we save that for another time?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We'll come back to that question. That'll be a whole other interview. All right. Let's see. What was my father, C.J. Leighton, like growing up?
He was way too smart for his britches. He was a good kid. He behaved. He was very much like me, just a very good little boy to raise and live with. And he was a lot like my father, in that he was very knowledgeable, very thoughtful about what he did, and he was very thoughtful of others. And I was not so much like that. It was kind of like a quiet me, but not him. He was very very intelligent. He was building his own carts. When he was 6 years old, he was rebuilding his own motors on these motocross bikes. I mean, I tried to teach him how to do these things, and he was just a natural.
That's awesome.
And he was extremely good at mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep.
Tell me about a time when he got in trouble.
Oh, I can't, to tell you the truth. I can't. I mean, he got into, I yelled at him one time, and I shouldn't have. He was bound determined to ride the neighbor's motorbike. And he had never been on a motorbike before, and I tried to explain to him that you had to keep a hand on the clutch and how to use the clutch. Well, he revved it up like the neighborhood kid did, let the clutch out, and went wham right into the side of the building. And it didn't hurt him, but it bent the bike up a bit. And I did yell at him. I said, "What did I tell you about the clutch?" And from then on, he never forgot to use the clutch. He got his own bike and became a real well-known motocross racer in Aroostook County.
Okay, so I have two left. The first is, what do you wish you had known when you were younger? And the second is, what is the most important thing I need to know? What do you wish you had known when you were younger?
I can't think of anything because I just took life as it came. But I always knew that I always had a 5-year plan. I always knew what I was going to be doing 5 years from now. And what was the other question?
What is the most important thing you think I need to know?
Never forget your family and always be full of love for them, regardless.
I don't think that'll be a problem.
Yeah, there you go.
Alrighty. Jim Leighton, over and out.